72 hours to go before Trump and his, pro-crypto advisors basically walk into the White House. Just look at this amazing bunch of people that are walking in, every single one of them crypto friendly. And you can see as a result, the market's getting very, very, very excited about it. You see all the old coins, all the US coins are actually running. You got Bitcoin at above $102,000, $102,308. It looks very, very, very good for the inauguration. But now with Trump coming into power, you need to allocate money into the right tokens. It could be the American tokens. It could be sectors that Trump is bullish about. And that's what the show is really about. We're going to break down and analyze which coins are going to benefit the most from Trump walking into the White House. And I think there are a lot of coins where you can actually still place a whole lot of good bets. So today, it's all about Trump. It's all about the inauguration. It's all about the next phase in the crypto cycle, a phase where we have a pro-crypto government in the United States of America. That is like the best thing I've ever heard. That's honestly, I cannot even believe that I'm saying it after being in crypto for like 8 or 9 years. I'm saying a pro-crypto government walking in, and we all need to be prepared. Look, I don't know about you, but I can tell you when I look at these bubbles, my portfolio is not ready for a Trump presidency. I'm holding a whole lot of tokens, but I don't think I've given enough thought to this whole Trump coming into power and what tokens he's actually going to be doing. And that's what we're going to be doing here today. I've got 3 of my best VC friends, and these are the best capital allocators in the world. And today we're going to dig in to the Trump presidency and how they are positioning themselves for a Trump presidency. This is of the utmost importance that you act very, very, very quickly. So without any further ado, number 1, if you ain't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Number 2, obliterate, destroy, annihilate that like button, because today is going to be one of our most high alpha filled shows, most alpha filled shows that we're going to have. Also, before we get into the actual alpha, today's show is brought to you by NordVPN. I always say about a VPN, if you're in crypto, you need to have a VPN. What does a VPN actually do? Well, as you can see right now, I'm in South Africa and it knows that I'm in South Africa. But I can change where I'm at. I can tell the VPN that I want to be in any one of these countries. And I can hide my identity, which means that no one knows where I'm surfing from. Not governments, not the actual dApps, not even Netflix. So if I want to go and watch Dubai Netflix, I just click here and I go and watch the Netflix. This is the most basic tool that you need to protect your crypto. Now, the truth is, this tool costs $3.33 per month, providing that you use this link over here below. Do yourselves a favor. Do yourselves a favor. I'm telling you, make sure that you take out a VPN. I spoke to another guy last week who, again, he clicked on a malicious site and they drained all his crypto. You need to have NordVPN and you need to have Threat Protect. Threat Protect is NordVPN's answer to malicious websites. Sometimes in crypto, you think you're going to a certain site, but there's another site that looks exactly like it, right? Threat protection blocks all this shit. Make sure you have NordVPN and make sure you have threat protection. There's a link below. If you use the link below, you support the channel and you get the best prices and you get free trial periods. So do it. I promise you it's the best investment you're going to make. You're going to make a lot of money in crypto. You've got to also learn to keep it. All right, now that you guys have taken a VPN, let's get into the alpha. It's all about Trump. And I think where we should start off is by asking our guests about the environment that Trump is walking into. So without further ado, I want to bring in the guests. Guys, welcome. We've got 𝗕𝗪𝗁, we've got 𝗕𝗪𝗁, we've got Santi, guys. All of you familiar faces, welcome back. We are 3 or 4 days away from the inauguration. What do you make of the environment that Trump's walking into right now? Like, do you think he's walking into a good environment? Or do you think he's walking into a bad environment? And the reason why I say that is you've got the Dixie up at 109. You've got the government bond at 4.6, quite high. You've got interest rates where the Fed has said that they're not going to cut interest rates very much next year. How do you see the environment for Trump to walk into? How does this play out?
I feel like Santi's our resident macro guy.
Santi, I think Santi wants to go first.
Well, listen, I'm not a macro guy. I do think that Trump, look, everything that I've read, and I believe that technology is the most important thing. And if you look at, we've been over the last 4 years in an administration that, in spite of their roadblocks, not just with crypto, but just generally has been very much hampering the pace of innovation, I think. And I think Trump appreciates that. Like, we've come this far. We've had a soft landing, but all I'm trying to say is I think Trump appreciates the position he's in to really like accelerate a lot of the two most important pieces of innovation that we're having, which is AI and crypto. And I think he just understands that if he does that exceptionally well, it bodes well for America. It bodes well for the rest of the world. And from a geopolitical standpoint, I think, the world's become a bit more unstable. And I think you just need a bulldog at the helm to really just crack whip throughout the rest of the world. And that is important. And so I think, like everything, I think Trump appreciates that. And, and he's very much focused on that effort. So, yeah.
I must say, for me, the one thing about Trump, and it stuck out for me, though I don't know if it's a new thing in politics, but it feels to me like Trump has surrounded himself with entrepreneurs, not with politicians. Like, you got Vivek, and you've got Elon, and you've got Paul Atkins, and you've got Howard Lutnick, and these are all business people. These are not politicians. And I think the biggest difference between business people and politicians is business people and these kind of entrepreneurs actually get shit done. And politicians are great at, bureaucracy and talk and stuff like that. And so it feels like this whole administration is very, very commercially focused, treating the government like a startup. I'd go as far as say like a tech startup, with Elon and Vivek and whatever else. And I think that's the part that excites me the most.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, to build on what Santi was saying, I think if you think about kind of, and what you were just saying, Ron, the macro situation is really tough right now. And I think there are like 4 options out of it. You could try to tax your way out of it, which, some on the far left would say, just go raise taxes on the billionaires. But if you run the numbers, it doesn't get you anywhere. So it's just not enough. You could try to cut your way out of it. But the reality is no government wants to cut entitlement spending. So you can't go to old people and say, sorry, you don't get benefits anymore. You don't get healthcare. That's not going to happen. Politically unfeasible. You could try to print your way out of it, which is basically what we've tried to do for the last 20 years. And so maybe that happens, but that's in effect a tax on poor people, which is really bad. Or you could try to grow your way out of it. And so like really the only viable option in my opinion is if you can get GDP up by 0.5%, like you just grow your way out of this whole thing. And so like actually the only viable option is to grow out of it. And so that's why I don't know if it's by design or if it happens to be who he's close to, or that's what all the tech people have realized, and so they all rallied around Trump. But I think that's what gets me excited about the nature of these people is I think it's a pro-growth oriented mindset, and that's really the only way out of these problems. And so hopefully they're successful. But it makes me optimistic at least that we have a shot. Like I think if those people weren't involved, there would just be no shot.
I think one of the questions that I have is like, if I was Trump, I would rather be walking into an environment where there's a strong Dixie than walking into an environment where there's a weak Dixie. Like with a Dixie at 109, you can devalue the currency and you can make the markets explode. With a Dixie at 80, it's very hard to devalue the currency and make the markets explode. Same thing with interest rates. When you walk into a zero interest rate environment, it's very, very, very hard to stimulate the economy. When you walk into a 4% or 4.5% interest rate environment, you've still got 4.5% of pure American interest rates that you can actually bring down. And so I put myself in the shoes of Trump, and I was like, what kind of environment would I want to walk into? I would want to walk into this environment because at least I've got levers to play with. Whereas the flip side of it, there's nothing to play with. There's nothing to move to actually affect anything. Haseeb, what do you think?
One thing to also appreciate about Trump is that Trump is kind of full of contradictions. If you think about the way in which, he's very much in favor of Doge, which is all about cutting government spending. At the same time, he wants to go buy Greenland. He wants to go invade Panama. He wants to, and it's unclear how serious is he about these things. Even the idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, so obviously the idea of strategic Bitcoin reserve is that they're not actually going to sell the Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but they're not also going to buy net new Bitcoin. They're just going to keep the Bitcoin there. But the idea of them actually buying net new Bitcoin, which is something that has been floated in Congress by Cynthia Lummis, is also in direct opposition of the idea of cutting spending, right? Going and buying new shit and putting it on the government balance sheet is spending more money. Now, again, most of these things are just kind of Trump shower thoughts that he ends up, tweeting or truthing or whatever it's called. So I don't think you should necessarily be taking these seriously as an embodiment of policy, but I do think it's important to understand that there are these kind of countervailing forces, right? If you look at Trump term one was very different than Trump term two, because in Trump term one, the Republican coalition that he built was really the MAGA, right? It was kind of pure MAGA. He for the most part kind of begrudgingly bought in the Republican establishment, and mostly had buy-in from Wall Street, but really nobody else. This Trump term two is this new right-wing coalition, or this new Trump coalition of both these kind of tech libertarians, who obviously are, Elon Musk and Mark Andreessen and all these characters that are now in the wings and also getting appointed, like, David Sachs, to positions of some authority, along with the MAGA base. And we're seeing already some internal infighting, right? The whole H-1B fight was basically these new elements of this coalition. If it was Trump term one, the MAGA people would have just won. It would have been like, yeah, fuck H-1Bs, we're going to kill this, and we're going to go to anti-immigration. But because you have this new kind of tech coalition, or this new tech portion of the coalition, you're seeing this contradiction playing out, which is that one side hates immigration, one side loves immigration, right? Or at least, high-skilled immigration. I think you're going to see a lot of that over these 4 years, is tons of contradictions, a lot of really messy kind of politicking to try to figure out what is this middle path that we can go. But the one thing I don't think you can do is just take Trump's rhetoric at face value and say, aha, here's what's going to happen to financial markets, right? Trump has been saying, I'm going to basically do a takeover of the Fed. Markets obviously don't believe it, right? Otherwise, you'd see it in the 5-year and the 10-year, or you'd see it in the CME, how it's looking at futures. It's basically saying no, he's not. He's not going to do that. So a lot of this stuff is telling you, don't believe everything you hear about Trump. And I think at this point, the markets are pretty resolute. The smartest money in the world is telling you, like, think more deeply before you take Trump at face value.
Okay, so speaking about not believing everything that we hear around Trump, the idea of an American first strategic reserve that would prioritize digital coins founded in the United States, like Solana, USD Coin, and Ripple, and I guess they mean XRP. Insiders who spoke shared that it was delegitimized the efforts to promote Bitcoin. So, I mean, there was this, I don't want to say it was a rumor, because it was published by the New York Post. And in that article, they mentioned that Trump may be considering the idea of a reserve which is not only made up of Bitcoin, but actually also made up of America first coins. And XRP is now at $3.37 on the news of this. And people are talking about the real flippening, which is actually XRP flippening ETH at this rate. I mean, you're talking about, it's already halfway there. It's exactly halfway to catching up to ETH's market cap. How do you feel about XRP being at $3.30? I mean, I want to start there. Like, how do you guys feel about XRP being at $3.30 and at a $200 billion market cap?
I mean, it's I've been approached 5 times this week by random people in the small country that I live in to talk about XRP at the gym, on the street. Look, I think it's positive. It highlights a couple of phenomena in crypto. One, the TikTok phenomena. I think a lot of the activity and flows from Ripple are coming from like this TikTok generation.
$200 billion? $200 billion? Like, I get it, but this is not TikTok money. TikTok money can get you to 10 billion, maybe 20 billion. TikTok money ain't getting you to 200 billion.
I mean, I'm not actually.
Maybe it is.
I actually think it is. It's much more so than what I initially thought. I don't have a precise number. If someone does, we'd love to see it. And the second component is, look, people want to go long. The initial conception, when you hear about crypto, the narrative around payments of stablecoin is incredibly strong. It's incredibly compelling. And I think Ripple has just dominated that narrative in a way that, most of the investors, when I was at Parafire, even now, you start talking about crypto, you mentioned stablecoins. And it's like, how can I long stablecoins? The adoption of stablecoins. You can tell them a whole variety of things, 𝗦𝗡𝗂𝗧𝗏 Circle IPOs or Coinbase stock or whatever. But Ripple is really just, go look at the clip of Brad and CNBC. He's only talking about that. And they've, to their...
So what is...
Tron doesn't get enough credibility within crypto natives, but they've done a lot of boots on the ground evangelizing and adoption of USDT. But I think it's they're tapping onto the hottest narrative of this cycle, I think, which is stablecoins.
So what is the XRP narrative? Because I must say I might be a little bit out of touch. Initially, it was that XRP was going to be the new SWIFT, and that it was going to be the payment rails for the interbank transactions, and that the banks, because of this new kind of blockchain payment rail wouldn't have to keep reserves with one another to settle trades. Is the new narrative now around XRP, is that still the narrative, or is the narrative now around XRP being the stablecoin issue around RLUSD, or is it called RLUSD? I think it's called. What is this? What is the XRP narrative that's giving it a $200 billion valuation?
I just want to go on the record as I don't understand it, so it's very hard for me to comment on it. I literally don't understand.
I see. Do you understand?
I just went to the website. I will tell you, the front page of the website says, "Modernize your financial infrastructure." Ripple is a leading provider of digital asset infrastructure for financial services. Send cross-border payments in real time, engage with tokenization of digital assets, and meet regulatory compliance requirements all in one place.
Okay, so I have another question. I believe that you're not invested in it. I'm not invested in it. Santi, you're not invested in XRP. So I have 3 of probably the smartest VCs in the space. And of the
we have a little bit of exposure. I should call out. We do have a little bit of exposure through the Bitwise funds.
Okay. So other than the Bitwise funds,
the Bitwise 10 holds.
That doesn't count. That
doesn't count. Yeah, that's coincidental. So that means that we're talking about the 3rd biggest cryptocurrency. Oh, well, hold on. Let me ask you a question. I'm assuming that you're all invested some way or another in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you're in some way or another you got exposure to ETH or ETH ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So are we saying that the 3rd biggest cryptocurrency by market cap, it's half the market cap of ETH, and 3 of the top VCs in the world don't even know what it does?
Crypto's always been a retail phenomenon, Ran.
That is correct.
Yeah. To be clear, I think we know what it does, right? So XRPL, it's primarily marketed as a way to, one, do tokenized transactions. They recently onboarded some DeFi, so they have a CLOB on there, they have an AMM, but for the most part, it's primarily used to settle transactions of basically stablecoins or real-world assets that exist on XRPL. Now, relative to Tron, clearly there's much more stablecoin volume that's flowing through other blockchains than is floating through XRP, but XRP is a darling because of the fact that it has a lot of financial institutions that have engaged with using XRP for various things. Now, for the most part, my understanding is that most of them are not really onboarding significant flows. But if you're asking the question of who has done the best job selling into banks, one of those answers is XRP and Ripple. Ripple in particular as a company.
What about like 𝗏𝗡? Like, are any of you guys invested in 𝗏𝗡?
I was a seed investor in 𝗏𝗡. I don't own it right now, much to my demise.
No.
Monty, what have you done? What have you done?
What?
Well,
what have you done?
But Rod, I think you're highlighting a couple of things. Like, dinosaur coins have been ripping. No one likes to talk about it. You could point to, like, 𝗏𝗡 had Lehman, who I think, you go listen to his talks. He has the right pedigree, he has the right background. And the same with the Brad from Ripple has it. Brad is very well connected, and I think you not to dwell too much into the inception of these dinosaur coins that current VCs don't like to talk about a lot. There's something that always happens in every cycle, which is old coins rip, and they rip early. And I think they just, they perform very well because, people that left come back, and then it's sort of like muscle memory to some extent. And, not to overlook the fact that these projects have massive treasuries. And so, crypto's always been a retail phenomenon.
Yeah, look, but let's not forget the other thing you just asked is like, okay, 3 VCs don't know about the dino coins. Like, yeah, we're VCs. Our job is not to look at old stuff; it's to look at new stuff.
Yeah, but you know exactly what's going on in the new stuff because that's how you're placing your bets around the old stuff. I mean, you know exactly what narratives are playing out and what's working. And what the reason why I'm asking is I'm trying to understand whether I've missed something. So to me, all of these coins are pretty much ghost towns from development, developer activity, which Vishal, I know you guys monitor pretty well. From TVL, from real TVL. When I say real TVL, staking your own token is not real TVL for me. Staking your own token and your token appreciating in value is not real TVL for me. But I'm also trying to work out whether I've missed something around these American coins because it's Algorand, it's 𝗏𝗡, it's XRP, and I'm trying to work out whether there's actually something real. Or whether it's just a bullshit narrative that Trump is going to not promote, but make concessions around the old
I mean, it's got to be market narrative driven. We don't see entrepreneurs building in this space. I think the bank angle is potentially, if you go talk to Brad or Chris at Ripple, like they would tell you there's a real adoption there. I don't know how that translates ultimately into XRP, accruing value, and therefore people wanting to buy it. I don't understand what that connection is, but I can see why the narrative would make sense. It's a very high value thing for people, but I mean, maybe it's stupid of me, but I sort of chalk it up to this is a meme. It's like people can get their head around what this thing does, even if there's no connection to the value, and that's a tough thing to bet on, like as an investor, right? It's like you're predicting meme trends is like really, really, really hard. It's playing the lottery.
Speaking of predicting meme trends, one trend that I saw this week actually was pretty funny. I've been watching Ansem's account, right? And I remember the days when Ansem used to post about all the meme coins. It was like SPX and it was 𝗬𝗢𝗏 and it was whatever else. And then I hopped onto his account now and it's mainly AI coins. So like, what do we think's happening in the cycle? Has the attention moved away from meme coins into AI meme coins? Or I mean, you can't really call them AI meme coins because they may at some point actually have.
You can call it that. I'm okay.
Yeah, they're definitely meme coins.
Ran, can I just go back to one thing about this whole discussion around Dino coins?
Yes, sir.
I want to make a point, like to 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀's point. I agree, it's all very narrative driven. What is more interesting to me is I think Trump will, if the strategic reserve happens, he will buy U.S. mined Bitcoins, and I would be looking very closely at Bitcoin mining companies or energy companies that have Bitcoin exposure based in the U.S. And that might be probably a better play.
Marathon.
That is Marathon, Riot.
Wait, hold on. What the fuck? What does that even mean that you would buy American Bitcoins? Also, how would that not immediately apply to all Bitcoins?
American mined Bitcoins, companies that are like Bitcoin miners that are based in the U.S. and then because they're not going to buy from the Silk Road, right? Because that's tainted.
Okay, fine, right? But like immediately, if you're buying from American Bitcoin sellers, isn't that not immediately arbitrage into everybody else's price for Bitcoin? Why would you care? Like it's a uniform asset, right? It's like some guy saying, I'm going to buy gold, but only from people who are left-handed. It's like, yeah, right-handed people, their gold also gets more valuable.
I'm not saying it's rational. I'm saying it's narrative.
You're too smart, Haseeb. That's not how this works.
I'm adopting. Man, we all miss.
Okay, all right. I apologize. I take it all back. This is why I miss Dino coins. This is why I miss the Dino coins.
Sir, come to the left side of the curve.
I must say, I hate myself as an investor because I look at the bubbles and I kind of look at let's look at the coins that are running. Litecoin, 20% up today. XRP, 14% up today. HBAR, 14%. I don't know what I'm doing here. I spend hours and hours and hours and of research buying tokens, and the tokens that move is this stuff. Like, I'm kind of thinking like, what am I doing wrong? Am I doing it wrong?
We just have to go educate all these people. We all need TikTok accounts or, Red Notebook accounts now. And we got to educate all these people.
Oh, man.
I mean, there's such a big disconnect, right? It's like, it's the people who know what's going on versus, the people on TikTok talking about this stuff. There's such a gulf in terms of what's actually
I think
real.
the answer, Ran, is that you got to get on 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀 and you got to start spreading the gospel.
Yep.
Dino coins, no. Dino coins. Left curve and right curve, right?
Yeah.
And we're mid-curving it.
We're mid-curving it.
Oh, totally.
In the short term, at least. I mean, I do think that over time, these things tend, if you look at over multiple cycles, these things tend to converge to, what has real value capture, what has cash flow around it, what has real developers, yada, yada. But yeah, in the short term, man, these things are crazy town.
Let me ask you a question. If you had like $10,000 to allocate right now and you were looking for returns, right? And you had to buy on the open market. So you couldn't buy off the open market. Like, would you actually allocate money to Dino coins? Could you I just can't get myself to allocate. That's the problem.
Okay, let's pause for a second and just remind ourselves that nothing has actually happened yet. Like Trump has not been inaugurated. He's not president. Like the SEC has not done anything. This is all market getting excited and kind of wetting itself before anything actually changes, right? When you actually see stuff happen, then we can go do the accounting and say what actually benefited. Right now the market is just kind of flailing. It's just picking random things and saying, hey, maybe this will go up, maybe that'll go up, maybe Trump will buy American coins, maybe he'll buy American Bitcoins, and that will make American Bitcoins go up. At some point, right, there will be a there. We'll see what happens with stablecoin legislation. We'll see what happens with the actual tax policy and the SEC cases that get dropped, and all of that stuff is going to filter into the market in a way that we can actually do the accounting, right? But right now, people getting excited and saying, oh, maybe this means Litecoin will go up. Yeah, maybe Litecoin will go up, but we will see when this stuff actually plays out.
Okay, so you've hit on a good point. How soon do you think Trump is going to act when he goes into office around crypto? When I say Trump, I mean the administration. I don't mean obviously Trump himself. I think there's a couple of promises that he made. I think the first promise that he made was fire Gary Gensler. He doesn't have to do that anymore. Then he's got to free Ross Ulbricht. And then he's actually got to, he said on day one. He said on day one.
That's step two. Step two is free.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just giving you. He said on day one. He said on day one. Look, my feeling is that if he doesn't do it, the crypto community is going to go back and go, hold on a second. He made a whole lot of promises and he didn't even fulfill the ones that he was supposed to fulfill on day one. He literally said on day one, I will commute Ross Ulbricht's sentence. So
I actually think he's followed through on even on like day -20. I mean, we got a great nominee for chair of SEC. Gensler felt the pressure, and it is customary for the SEC chairman to resign, but he actually followed through. We have a Treasury Secretary that has to divest his like BTC ETF, implying that he probably holds more BTC outside of the ETF. That guy's pro crypto. We got David Sachs as the AI crypto czar. We got Sriram in as like an AI person and he also, worked on a bunch of crypto stuff at Andreessen. Like you started actually looking through and you're like, actually, I mean, they seem to basically be doing what they said.
You're saying he's already done it. He's already done it.
I think he's already done a lot of it. I think it would be hard for somebody who, let's say you didn't vote for Trump. I think it'd be hard to look at it narrowly on this crypto stuff and say, he said he was going to do a lot of stuff. He didn't do any of it. Actually, he's done quite a bit already without even being in office, I think.
Okay, I mean, fair point. Steve, I think I agree with you in terms of strategic reserve. I'm not American, so I'm not sure what actually has to happen from a process point of view. But I do think that if we do get a strategic reserve, it's not about buying more Bitcoin. It's just about facilitating holding the current Bitcoin.
Freezing.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Which is a little bit of a circus trick, right? Because at the end of the day, let's say in 4 years, world gets fed up with Trump, we get a Democrat, and they say, oh, guess what? We're going to tap the strategic Bitcoin reserve and sell it all down. In which case, Trump has basically just extended an auction by 4 years. Unless you actually get Congress to do something, the strategic Bitcoin reserve is basically Trump promising, yo, bro, I'm not going to sell.
Yeah,
which is nice. Like it's good for 4 years, but it means that at the end of the 4 years, probably everything gets sold.
Well, look, Steve, I think it's a good observation. The thing is, the second order effects of that happening are very powerful.
I completely agree with that.
For the rest of the world,
it shifts the overton window.
It totally. It's like
it's
Paul
the game
Tudor
theory.
Jones de-risking. Paul Tudor Jones. What Paul Tudor Jones did way back for other hedge funds, Trump will do it for nation states and also just corporations. And so I think that's super powerful. The broader question is, what can he actually do from a and I'm not an expert on politics, but just would be really interesting to then just figure out, okay, what can actually be passed through Congress and how aggressive you can run that. Not just with crypto, but also we talk about macro, like, tariffs and all that stuff that can have inflationary pressures and AI policy and all of that stuff. My understanding is that he's in a pretty good position, just how Republicans are positioned in the Congress and so to really actually drive meaningful change, and also the three-letter agencies that have a bit more autonomy. Although, if I recall, some of that authority was peeled back with a Chevron case that I think was overruled last year. But I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm just posing the question.
Okay.
Yeah, so two thoughts on that. So one, I do think from these agencies, whether it's the SEC or FCC or FTC, there's a very concerted effort over the last 4 years to sort of weaponize these agencies. And I think if you sort of grant the best motivation, right? Let's not assume malintent for a second, though I do think there was some malintent there. Let's not assume that for a second. The best possible case is there are a bunch of people who are looking at the structure of these markets and saying, our legislation does not allow in the United States for monopoly law to work the way that we wish it did, right? It isn't a consumer protection thing. It's a supply side monopoly measurement, which is, because it's rooted in like the oil and the railroad and the fiber optics. Like that's how monopoly law in the United States was created. And these new quote unquote monopolies are really demand side monopolies, right? They're like Facebook and Google, and like you choose to go there, and they have this data feedback loop. And so monopoly law doesn't really apply to these companies. And so legislatively, there's no way to go after these guys and say like, you're crushing the market, you're too dominant, yada, yada. And so what they did was they did an end around, right? They said, let's go to the agencies, which have a lot of discretion, and really go make these guys' lives miserable and push back on them. And that means M&A doesn't, like mergers and acquisitions don't happen, like IPO stop, like you really try to cut it off that way. And that was a huge mistake, actually, over the last, I would say, decade. And it really accelerated in the last 4 years. The reason it was a mistake was it pissed off all the judges, right? It pissed off the judiciary because they looked at it and they said, wait a second, we had a pretty good system here where Congress was not supposed to litigate like every little line item definition. They said, we're not experts at securities law. We're not experts at like communications. We'll let the experts in the agencies decide where the boundaries are, and we'll give them good rulemaking authority to have some discretion on how to apply these things in practice. And then the experts can be in the mix in terms of actually like figuring out how these rules get applied. And once those experts started, sort of doing things that were pretty far outside the spectrum of what they should have been doing, literally going to court and losing, the judges got really pissed off. And so as it escalated through the court system, the judges really look at themselves properly in the United States as a check and balance, right? And so they said, the executive branch is out of control. Like this is so far afield of what these guys were supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be a bunch of experts trying to interpret the laws and make things efficient. And what it became was this hyper politicized thing. And that's not okay. And so we're going to cut that off. And that has now actually, I think, curtailed the agencies pretty dramatically, which I think takes a lot of the heat off. The other thing that I think on the ground that people maybe who are not entrepreneurs that like we all experience very directly is the tenor of the conversation really changes. Like if the executive in charge is saying, don't go after crypto, like fucking stop, then stuff like Operation Choke Point 2.0, the banks, the SEC, the capital markets, like all of this stuff now all of a sudden people aren't scared. And that really changes the backdrop. Like the analogy I would use for people on the left who are like, oh, that's not happening, that's not a real thing. The analogy I would use is like women's health and abortion rights, right? Like technically abortion is not illegal, right? In the United States and at the national level, at the federal level, and there's no abortion ban. And a bunch of these states have not technically speaking banned abortion, but the temperature of the conversation in certain states really changed. And if you're a doctor and you're worried about whether or not you get sued or the government comes after you for saying something or doing something, of course you're going to change your behavior, right? And so like the market changes based on what the sort of guidance is from the top down, even if the rules haven't changed.
The trajectory changes, the mood changes,
dramatically, and
the direction changes
so dramatically, right? And I think like that is the thing that really changes here. Like so, even if and to Ron, to your earlier point, like even if nothing happens, even if Trump does nothing, the fact that the temperature changed means founders come back. Like we've seen that in our portfolio. Literally, founders that were in Dubai and Europe and Asia are like, "Cool, I'm coming back now, because I'm not worried about the SEC suing me and all this stuff happening." And so they're coming back. So if literally nothing else happens, like I think it's actually a huge win already.
Yeah.
And to be clear, this is one of the explicit goals of the new administration. Like from what I've heard from people who are around the margins of, Sachs and some of the people who are trying to figure out the crypto strategy. Right now, there's not that much of a strategy. There's kind of a direction or just sort of a vibe, but there's not like, oh, if you ask them like, hey, what's the new decentralization test? They're like, I have no idea. We're just trying to pick people right now. But if you ask them like, okay, what's the goal? What are we trying to do? There's one very clear answer, which is bring crypto back to America. Like we want America to be the crypto capital. We want all those people to come back here. We want all this reshoring. We want jobs to come back. And they perceive crypto as being part of that complex of things that they want to be in America.
I want to ask you an honest question. I know we look at it because we're crypto. Like we love crypto. We're laser focused on every move that it makes in crypto. Do you really think it's the priority of the government to bring crypto back to America? Or do you think it's just one of 100 priorities? Like how high up, I think what I'm asking is how high up on the priority list is it? I know they said it is a priority and I'm sure it is, But are we just looking out for the signals in our industry, or is this a real thing where they are really hungry to make America great again when it comes to crypto?
It's a yes and. It's both, right? One, yes, we are paying attention to it because we are, we spend all our lives in crypto. But I'd say for this new administration, I would guess it's probably in the top 10. It's obviously not number 1, number 2, or even number 5.
That's
but
big.
It's there. It's on the agenda.
I don't think we need to even go as far as saying is how it's a priority. It's never been a priority in the positive sense. So, to your point, Steve, like Trump first administration, he was critical of crypto. Now he didn't interfere as much as the last 4 years. Total 180. I mean, and that alone unlocks so much value, allows us to explore token design, allows us to not have to spend 20-30% of the capital raised to lawyers that give you no fucking answer. That allows us to, do so many things that unlocks and releases all of this tension that has been pent up, and how much capital is on the sidelines. I'm not in fundraising mode for a fund right now, but talk to these guys. How much capital LPs calls have you been on that they say, hey, everything's great, love stablecoins, love everything, but just call me when there's regulatory clarity.
No, it happens. It happens for sure. The other, one of the things I learned working at a big organization, as a Facebook for a while, is you actually don't want to be the top priority. You actually want to be. It's like Icarus, right? You don't want to fly too close to the sun. You don't want to be. If you're like in the water, you're going to drown. And so I actually think crypto is like roughly in the middle right now,
and
that's that's exactly where you want to be.
It's in the sweet spot. It's like,
it's important enough. It's important enough that like if you go to the president, he's going to say like, why are you screwing these guys? Like, get out of their way, let them do their thing. But it's not so high. It's not like abortion or gun control or China or like this kind of stuff where like there's so much tension and pressure on it.
I like this direction you're going in, 𝗕𝗏𝗄. I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction that at some point in the next 4 years, we're going to fuck it up. We're going to do something super embarrassing, and Trump is going to flip. I'm calling
interesting.
it now.
Wow. Okay.
That's interesting.
You think you're saying like another
collectively embarrass the Trump family.
You're saying like another FTX, but it won't be an FTX. But you're saying like we're going to do something stupid, and then Trump's going to flip on crypto kind of thing, and like I backed you guys.
Yeah, Trump is going to be like, now I'm getting the heat for this. I'm getting blamed. People think that I lured them into this like.
I don't think so.
Thing.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think his whole family is crypto obsessed, and that I know from firsthand experience. Trump
I
Jr.
agree. Totally agree.
Trump Jr. is crypto obsessed. Eric Trump is crypto obsessed. The family is crypto obsessed. His advisors, his advisors, and the people around him are all crypto obsessed. So I must say, I don't really agree. I think it's real. I got to be honest. I think it's real.
I think there's a third scenario here which is that they are pro some things and anti other things. Like you could end up BTC maximalist, right? You could end up with like, no, Bitcoin's real. All those other like shitcoiners are doing terrible things. Don't do that. Or maybe like, Sachs is in the White House, so it's like, no, like Solana is real, don't touch Solana. Like there's actually some middle ground here where they say like
that is the scariest if like Trump starts having opinions, like that's the scariest.
I must agree.
Yeah,
but what do you think happens to his wallet? What I mean, who is? I'm really curious. I don't know, but like he's bought certain coins.
Yeah. So
that are not just American coins. He's Aave in there and a bunch of DeFi coins and.
Yep.
But hold on. If you're talking about world liberty token.
Financial.
Yeah, that's not Trump. I mean, that's not Trump. I mean, I don't even think he knows what's it.
He has an economic exposure. That's
not, look, it's not Trump. I can tell you it's not Trump because I know them. It's not Trump. It is a bunch of people who are endorsed by the Trump family. And I can guarantee you that Donald Trump has no idea what's in that wallet. And doesn't care what's in that wallet. It's not the Trump family. It's I know this because I speak to guys. It's a bunch. It's a bunch of people who have managed to get an endorsement, and it has the Trump family has zero idea what's in that wallet. I can guarantee you that. Maybe no. When I say the Trump family, maybe one of the kids or grandkids knows, but certainly not the big dog. He has no idea. He has no idea.
I would believe that.
Yeah, no, I know this because I won't say we're involved with them, but we speak to them. We were a part of it. Like we spoke to them before it launched. We're invested in it, so like we know what's going on there. And I can tell you that, I mean, it's a Trump family thing, and it's one of those things that the Trump family has agreed to endorse, but it's not the Trump wallet. It's certainly not the Trump wallet. That's the narrative that crypto Twitter has spun up. And I like even as someone who's invested and really wants this thing to go up, I'll tell you that that's not really like what's going on. We don't have much more time, but I do want to speak about stablecoins. And Santi, you've mentioned stablecoins about 44 times since the beginning of the stream. And I'm as bullish on stablecoins as you are.
Not financial advice.
Yeah. So I'm as bullish stablecoins as you are. And, I think I'm like everybody else. I'm mid-curving and I'm asking, how can I get exposure to stablecoins? I'm not invested in Circle. I'm not invested in Tether.
Buy USDC. Buy USDC.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, that is exposure. You didn't say you wanted to make money on it.
You would have outperformed most VCs if you held USDC for the last 3 years.
That's true. That's true.
Recently.
So, I mean, one play is like buying Athena. Another play is maybe buying Curve. Curve is probably, I mean, if you think about an economy where there's a lot of stable coins and stable coins need to switch between one stable coin and another, you could kind of argue that Curve is probably the most robust place to trade stable coins at the moment. You can extend that and say it's Curve and Convex. You can go higher up the risk curve and you can go into things like an usual protocol, the stable coin, real world asset play. Like, how else can I get exposure to the stablecoin narrative? Or is the real answer, look, you can't unless you can get the Circle IPO?
Well, Nubank recently just launched its support for USDC rewards. Nubank's a public company. Coinbase obviously has exposure. Although I don't love Coinbase for that reason. I think say rates stay the same, but I just think that USDC share, which is currently 20% of total stablecoins, like 220 billion stablecoin circulation. Tether is like 75%. I don't think that changes much. I do think that USDC is probably the most at risk as folks like PayPal and other fintechs just realize the massive potential and they're going to want to launch their own. Probably a consortium, but they're not going to use USDC. They're not going to, they're going to want to do their own because they have distribution. But Nubank is interesting. It has different, so I would look at that too. Like public companies that start endorsing and really just their margin profile starts changing pretty dramatically because, whether you're a retailer or just, I think fintechs doing remittance flows or whatever, like that could just be a massive release from their cost structure. I mean, I've spent a lot of time looking at this from what I'm doing next. And I just think that might be an interesting, you always have a liquidity kind of premium and there's no thing as multiples in crypto. So like people just go crazy, but public companies from a risk adjusted standpoint could be quite interesting. And I think you're going to see a bunch of other crypto native companies like Athena, launch their token, like Mountain Protocol.
How bullish are you? How bullish are you on Athena?
I don't have a position on it. I know the founder quite well. I mean, they're launching their chain now, I hear. So look, they're doing interesting stuff. My biggest concern around Athena, which I was probably like mid-curving or was lizard brain of mine, was just like what happens with like when funding rates go all over the place or actually go persistently negative. And I think it's encouraging. I don't have a strong opinion on it, candidly, other than I think it's a really interesting protocol. I wouldn't call it a stable coin. It's like a tokenized hedge fund, so to speak, like doing a carry trade or whatever. But
I think there's actually, Ron, to your earlier question about how to get exposure, my partner Ken had a good little mini tweet about this a couple of days ago. There's actually two kinds of stablecoins in market. There's the medium of exchange stablecoins, and then there's the yield stablecoins, and they're actually different products. And Athena falls into that second category. And the medium of exchange ones, basically it's dominated by Tether and USDT and USDC. Like you just look at the flows, you look at transaction volume. And so in that bucket, that's going to continue to grow. And what you really need to do is figure out what are the use cases of the dollar. So that's things like payments, remittances, interbank transfers, invoice factoring, insurance. Like if you just go look at the S&P, you're like, what are all of the biggest money movers in the world, and what are all the biggest transaction sources in the world, and which of those businesses could actually be built on stable coins, and is that a startup that needs to be created, or can the existing business transform itself? That's sort of the mindset for that first category. And then I think for the second category, it's going to be like crypto native on chain. How do you generate yield in the right way? Who's winning that market share? And Athena clearly, I think, has done a good job in that universe. But I think there's going to be a whole category of yield-bearing stablecoins, which are not really stablecoins. It's actually a financial instrument. To Santi's point, it's almost like a hedge fund wrapped with a stablecoin. And that is, I think, you probably have many winners, and different risk profiles and different regional network effects and maybe chain-based network effects. There's like a lot there. So for like smaller investors or VCs, I actually think that second category is probably much more interesting, and it's still quite early.
Well, I think the most exciting is the first category. The problem is I don't think there's an entry point into the first category.
Right. Exactly.
The most exciting
is net impact on the world. The first one is transformative, right? Like all of a sudden, capital flowing all over the world, and the cost of that money going down, remittance, fees going down from 8% to 0.1%. Like it just changes the world for sure. It's trickier to get exposure to that as an investor, in many ways.
Maybe this is a good opportunity to I know there's not like that many tokens, but like at the app layer, you could you could have a thesis around the user aggregator is going to want to capture a lot of that value. Like if you're a wallet, and if you can onboard more and more users with a stablecoin hook, like Nubank, but just imagine like a crypto native project that has a token. It could be Phantom or whatever. They may just not share as much of that yield or keep some of that yield themselves, and that could be a very lucrative business. So like I know we keep talking about like infra has done well, and just like don't mid curve it, just buy infra. But in this case, I could get around a thesis around identifying which apps have really big distribution, whether crypto native or not, and they're gonna like really transform their business with stable coins and capture that yield themselves. They don't need to share that much yield. Like a crazy stat that I was seeing the other day, when you look at like JP Morgan's earnings report, like there are like I don't even want to put a number, but a ton of customers just have cash sitting in a checking account, not earning 4.5%, 5%. This just tells you like how people hate thinking about money. The more powerful thesis around stablecoins is like AI agents, like just doing this for you, right? If you have a wallet that then the lines between a checking account and a money market account basically collapse, because if you allow an AI agent to route that money,
okay,
they're gonna immediately swap. They're gonna immediately.
You let us into.
They're gonna immediately
tie together all the narratives. Amazing.
They're not there, but has he like what I'm trying to say is AI agents that like ascribe or like are behind this, and Ron, I mentioned it because you mentioned AI agents before. I do think that the
is it a real thing? Is it a real thing in crypto? Or is it? I also think it's real.
It's not yet. It's not yet. Is it a real thing? Not yet. Obviously, there is no agent that's going to go and like optimize where you're going to get your yield. I do think that it will happen at some point. And it's going to have a really massive effect.
When you say some point,
of assets.
When you say some point, do you say some point in the next 6 months or some point in the next 10 years? Because I think it's going to happen. I've been deep diving into these AI agents, and I agree that at the moment most of them are just rewrapped LLM models or interfaces into multiple LLM models. Right now, that's pretty much what we're seeing. And the whole of crypto Twitter is getting so impressed at the fact that this agent can actually tweet and have a reasonably okay crypto IQ. But I've also seen the tooling that people are building. And I do see a world where in the next 12 months, there's an AI agent that's actually optimizing yields. I would stick my head out and say 12 months from now.
First, let me clarify this. You do not need an LLM to optimize yields. We've had yield optimizers for like 8 years. Literally, we had these in 2017. Yeah, exactly. This is old as shit. We already have yield optimizers. You don't need language to optimize yield.
I disagree.
You need language for no.
No, but the LLM is the interface.
To understand what you care about as a financial advisor, and make recommendations on your behalf, right?
Of course. Yes.
Not to optimize yield. Optimizing yield is really easy.
You need language for intents, right? I mean, it's like you just like specify your intent, and the same with a robo advisor, like better, like Wealthfront and Betterment were doing it, but now in a more marginally sophisticated and much less friction standpoint, because you're using crypto rails.
I think it's the analogy here, and Hissy, I know how much you love reasoning by analogy. But what it reminds me of is you and Kyle. But what it reminds me of is, you know, like all of this stuff on the iPhone existed on the BlackBerry, right? It was like you could do maps, you could do email, you could message people, but it's just like the touchscreen changed it all, right? Like the form factor changed it all. And I think the form factor changing on the front end, yes, you could technically do yield optimization with some machine learning thing and like create some, you know, optimal risk reward, whatever. But actually, like just being able to message a thing and say like, yo, can you do this for me? And it'll just do it is like actually transformative. I think it's a game changer.
So I think I agree with you.
Look, I really want to throw cold water on this because I think like this is one of the bullshit narratives. Because here's the thing, right? If you are taking a closed environment, if you're just saying, look, there's these 7 things, pick the one with the best yield and give it to me. We were doing that years ago, right? I was there in DeFi Summer. You were there. Yes. You remember all the yield optimizers. There were so many of them. Like you couldn't throw a stick and not find a yield optimizer. Okay, this is not a hard problem. What is the hard problem is given an infinite state space of all possible things that your agent could do on your behalf, pick things that are not stupid and will not result in you losing your money. Okay, that is a really hard problem. We are nowhere near being able to solve that problem. Now, if you give it a list of like, look, here are 10 things you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to do any other things. I can do that yesterday. I could do that 5 years ago. But the problem of here's my account, here's the blockchain, and here's who I am and what I care about. Agents will not be able to do that this year. There's absolutely no way. Agents can't even book a fucking flight. Do you think they can solve the blockchain and like not get scammed?
Well, you could have done it, but other people couldn't have done. Like you're technically competent.
No, not me. I'm talking literally anybody who can go to any yield optimizer 5 years ago.
Right.
You're
relying on
do this.
True. Yeah.
Okay, but hold on. So if I wanted to invest in the future of this, in AI, so in crypto, so we all agree there is a future. You're just saying it's not very close. It's still miles away.
It is not going to happen this year. There's absolutely no way it happens this year. I can believe this year you'll get agents that can book flights.
Okay, so let's assume that you're right. If I wanted to make this bet in crypto that agents, because NVIDIA's taken a bet that agents are going to rule the world. I bet that agents are the best thing for crypto.
I agree.
Crypto has an interface problem. Has an interface problem. We got these complicated things. It's clunky. Crypto's clunky. If you're not on a centralized exchange, it's a clunky experience, barring maybe Hyperliquid. It's a very clunky experience. The interface could be the AI agents. The interface could be the AI agents. Do this, trade this, buy this, tell me what this is, explain the blockchain. If that's my thesis, how do I invest in it? Surely I'm not going to invest in all these LLMs, rewrapped LLMs. That can't be the best bet.
Yeah. I mean, look, my view is that I agree with you that all of this will happen. I think you have to understand timelines in order to be able to make good predictions about what to buy when. Look, one way or another, it's very clear for the next year, AI is the music that's playing. And if you want to make money in the short term, you got to get up and dance. So that means that a lot of this AI stuff is going to rip, regardless of how long it's going to take before agents can actually go and act intelligently for you, buy meme coins for you, like go get in and out of pump.fund trends for you. Like all these things should be solvable, right? It's all stuff that you and I can do. So therefore an LLM eventually will be able to do it too. But will they be able to do it this year? Probably not. Is that going to matter for what's going to go up and down this year? Also probably not. But if you're actually trying to answer that object level question, yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious, like, why you sound like you're very convicted that it won't happen this year. Like, is there any technical obstacle or structurally, like, why that couldn't happen?
I think the reason why it can't happen is a fewfold. One, jailbreaking. Okay, if you're in an adversarial environment, we know that any model today can get jailbroken really easily. People are still jailbreaking OpenAI. They're still breaking ChatGPT, which is the most robust thing that we have. Just go Google, just go on YouTube and say, hey, find me a jailbreak, and they'll give you one. Like a lot of these porn sites that you can do some porn role play, they're using OpenAI. They just know what the jailbreak is to get it to do some porn role play or something. So if your AI
how do you know this?
And it's jailbreakable. I know this because I
mean specifically on the porn example.
Just Google this.
No, but specifically the porn example.
I know a company that literally does this. I know a company that literally does this.
Okay.
So,
I think you have a very narrow. you have a very narrow definition of the product here, though, I think, which is you're saying like you want the agent to act autonomously on everybody's behalf and on chain, and people know that it's an LLM, yada yada. Like I think that there's an in between there, which is talking to the agent and telling it to do things, and like the like complexity of signing the transactions and doing all this stuff on chain and figuring out which contract is the real one, and which chain your money's sitting on and bridging it over, and like all of that stuff can be abstracted away. And so I think there's like actually an intermediate step, which is before like fully sovereign autonomous AI agents are running on chain, which I agree with you doesn't happen this year, which is still essentially just an LLM wrapper, but it gets convert. It's kind of like the LLM converting to SQL or something, right? It's like it's just converting to on-chain transactions, and then you're saying, okay, it's like
look, if you
Telegram bots plus,
Yes, if you enclose the state space and you basically say, look, here are the bridges you're allowed to use, here's the protocols you're allowed to use, you whitelist everything, and then you say, I want a bridge from here to there, and it like constructs a transaction for you. Totally. You can do that today. I think that is actually very, very doable today. I've seen demos of startups that are building exactly that. That totally works. That's not what people want. That is kind of a circus trick. It's not getting product market fit. People aren't using it en masse. Like these exist. You can go find a bunch of them right now. They don't have that many users.
Yeah. Have you seen many pitches? I'm starting to get them. Like people are latching. Like I go back to intents. Like this is the whole point. Like limit orders. Like in many ways, your point is you can. You still need to like the surface area of crypto continues to expand, right? There's new protocols, new protocols are upgrading their code base. So like you can't really cover that at all. So maybe agreeing a bit with what you're saying, which is if you're gonna like express explicitly the 100 things that this particular agent could do, and then productize that for people that normies that just want that convenience,
and then
like,
add a token, and then add a token to it, and then add a token to it.
Like that, I could see that getting. I could see that getting traction more than a yield optimizer or LP position optimizer on top of Uniswap v3 kind of thing. Is it
look,
a lot of
I
it
totally
is
agree
the
with
AI
that.
hype? Yeah, is it a feature, not a pro? Yeah, it might just be short lived. Would I invest in it? Maybe not.
So
Once the value capture, some of the swap fees, but it's not a $200 million business. I don't think so.
So maybe let's talk about the actual real crossroad between crypto and AI, because I'm assuming that you guys are investing in crypto AI, right? Like I'm assuming that is one of the narratives you're all bullish on. So if you're saying that these agent LLM models are not the entry point into these AI agent spaces or into AI, then what is the right play into crypto AI? Like I know for sure I want to be invested in the intersection between crypto and AI. You all seem pretty adamant that this current iteration is not the right one. Then what? Great, I want exposure. What do I invest in? What are the places?
Well, I would give two answers. One is that what I'm not saying is not that all this stuff isn't going to go up. I guarantee you it's all going to continue going up, because the thing about all the current iteration of quote unquote AI agents, which are really just chatbots, there's chatbots on Twitter. I mean, they're barely even crypto. They're just chatbots with meme coins. The reason why they are continuing to go up is that so much of crypto in the short term trades around attention.
Yes.
And these things are attention grabbing by nature because they're social. So the more social it is, the more likely it is that there's a big fat spotlight, and it's going to continue to absorb that spotlight, get attention, and get people talking. I think at some point people will get bored of it. I think you're already starting to see that first iterations of people getting bored of,
Are
it's like,
people
okay,
bored
the
of
meme coin
meme?
that
Are
talks back,
people bored of memes yet?
they're bored of some memes,
I'm
right?
bored of
I
memes.
mean, how much do people talk about Peanut? How much do people talk about, there's some of these things that are just obviously very short-lived, right? Even GOAT. People are already bored of Truth Terminal. It's like, oh, okay, it's kind of schizo, it's kind of weird, it's kind of crazy, but you can only read that for so long before you're like, okay, I get what this is about. Like, this is not perpetually entertaining.
It's content, right? And content has a half-life, and it sort of falls off at the end of the day.
Okay, so what must I invest in? We're running out of time here, and I really want to understand. Like, if I'm bullish crypto, I'm bullish AI, I'm bullish the intersection between crypto and AI. Vishal, what should I invest in?
We think a lot of it is probably not going to be token networks in the near term. It's like infrastructure. So for example, like a lot of Bitcoin miners have a lot of power contracts, and maybe actually they should be dropping GPUs into their data centers instead of Bitcoin miners. And there's a cost optimization you could do there. There's the infra layer to like route this stuff around. And I think, we're investors in 𝗫, and I think 𝗫's infrastructure to do cross-chain, chain abstracted kind of transactions. Because an AI doesn't care, it just needs to do the thing. It's actually really good infrastructure for that. And they're building a bunch of SDKs around that. So like, how do you route stuff around? And then I think at the application layer, there's going to be things that are taking advantage of this as an interface. And so, what does it mean to be able to talk to an LLM and interface on chain? Then I think there's this like second category, which people may not think of it as AI x crypto, but is adjacent, which is the spillover of these technologies. So for example, with this like open source models that are getting put out, you don't really know the data that went into training them. And so like you should be able to have verifiable data pipelines, right? Like I can prove to you that I put certain data in or I didn't put certain data in. And that's a cryptographic problem, right? Like that's actually a problem we've solved. Or how do you run these models locally and sort of share state up? This is like a distributed consensus problem. Like we have a lot of technologies here that spill over into AI, but I bet you the AI people won't think of it as crypto. They'll just think of it as, oh, it's a distributed systems problem or it's a cryptography problem. And I actually think crypto people can really excel at those kinds of things. But again, those are not necessarily token networks. Those are just new companies that need to get created.
Santi, are you investing in this AI narrative or in any AI?
Yeah, very active. The use case of each you just described, like Exo Labs is doing this. They allow you to run a model locally, super lightweight. I'm looking at another project raising right now, and that is doing similar mechanism. But I agree with Vicho. Like this is where people have not given crypto enough credibility around super smart people tying it all together, like bringing innovation back in America. I think the convergence of crypto and AI is very real. Like there's just really smart people that come from distributed systems background, cryptography, all of that is not just like applicable to Bitcoin in that system and solving Byzantium's general problem. It's very applicable for AI. And I think that the realization that I had was like around this time last year, where like Google launched its own model, like Gemini, super opinionated. I think you could have asked it like, what's the optimal diet? And it would have like never mentioned red meat. I mean, that's a woke model, And so I think for me, it was like in that moment, I appreciated, hey, I think there's a very real chance that companies are not going to want to rely on these like, out of the box models. They're going to they have a lot of data and they're going to want to train it. And I think crypto can fit in nicely into that convergence. I've been bearish on like marketplaces for renting out GPUs. I think that was like an acute problem, not a persistent problem. Is it, with stablecoins, super convenient to be able to like go and rent out a GPU in real time and micro payments and all that? Certainly. I just didn't think it was venture scalable, but the market disagrees with me, and I'm fine. Like I'm fine sitting that one out. I'm more interested in around verification of data, to be able to like actually prove to Vicho's point, hey, is the model actually, where's this data coming from? Like providing a proof. And I think like there's been a lot of work over the last couple of years in that technology, and I think that will bode really well and spill over to just continuing to give crypto sufficient credibility, and because there's been a lot of really good work in the background that hasn't really been appreciated by the overall market. So I think that in and of itself really just changes the 180 perception of crypto in a very meaningful way.
All right, guys, we are completely out of time. I'm respectful of your time. We've gone very much over time. I want to thank you guys. The next time I'll see you, we'll have Trump as president. The markets will be firing, and we'll all be rich, and we can invest all our money into AI agents.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. All right, thank you guys. Much love from the Banter fam. Much love for everyone. And to you guys, the Banter fam, after all of that, we will see you guys again on Sunday. And on Sunday, we're going to have an AI agent investment show. I wonder how 𝗓𝗓 feels about the AI agent investment show, which is happening on Sunday. You should tune in, sir. See you guys again on Sunday. Until then, trade well, my friends.